All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. After 6 years as the head coach at his alma mater, Patrick Ewing has been let go by Georgetown. In 6 years at Georgetown, Ewing's record was only 75 and 109 as the once proud Hoyas have spiraled to the bottom of the Big East. Georgetown only managed to win 13 games over the last 2 years, which included losing 29 straight at one point within the Big East. Now, Ewing was never able to come close to the success that he had as a player at Georgetown. And you think about his 4 years at Georgetown from 82 to 85. He was a two-time Big East Player of the Year, four-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year, an All-American. He also helped the Hoyas reach three Final Fours, and he helped Georgetown win the national championship in 1984. But the game has changed so much since Patrick played at Georgetown. And you think about that, he was never able to get the message across to his kids like it was gotten across to him because the game has changed. And I've talked about this with John Thompson II, his mentor in the past. John Thompson II was a teacher, but then he also knew how to make boys into men. He taught the youngsters that he coached at Georgetown, not just about basketball, but about being men. And the thing is, the game has changed because in those days, you know, guys would stay 4 years in college. Obviously, that is no longer the case. You got to deal with a lot of one and dones. You got to deal with the transfer portal as well. And Ewing's message just did not resonate with the youngsters. And you saw a lot of, players at an alarming rate, leave his program through the transfer portal. Now, with that said, in consecutive days now, two legends of the original Big East who helped to shape that conference for the fabric of basketball have been let go by their respective alma maters. Yesterday, it was Jim Boeheim after 47 years as the head coach at Syracuse, and then of course Ewing today. And you think about Georgetown and Syracuse in the 80s and how that was the rivalry that helped to galvanize the Big East and make the Big East what it was. And of course, Jim Boeheim was coaching Syracuse in those days. And of course, Patrick Ewing's play for Georgetown under his mentor, John Thompson II, really helped to shape the fabric of that. Now, in replacing Ewing, will Georgetown do something that it has not done in more than 50 years, which is to go outside of the Georgetown family to find their next head coach? I mean, you figure John Thompson II held it down for nearly 30 years. When he stepped down, his assistant Craig Esherick took over, and when Craig Esherick was let go, it was John Thompson III, and now it's Patrick Ewing. So when it's all said and done, I think Georgetown is going to go outside of their family to find their next head coach. And with that said, one name you're definitely going to hear is the name of Rick Pitino. And of course, he's currently at Iona, and he's a guy that has had success at every stop along the way as far as college basketball goes. And then on top of that, he knows how to have success in the Big East as he took both Louisville and Providence to the Final Four coming out of the Big East. And then, of course, getting to the Final Four three times with Kentucky and winning a national championship there as well. But nonetheless, if Georgetown wants Pitino, they might have some competition on their hands from Big East rival St. John's, who could possibly go after Rick Pitino if they decide to move on from Mike Anderson. So that could be an interesting tidbit to keep an eye on. Another name that I'm throwing out there, Speedy Claxton. Of course, he is a New York City guy for the most part. He's having success right now at Hofstra. He's young. He's 44 and 20 in 2 years there. And you think about what happened with another Big East school in Villanova. Once upon a time, they went to Hofstra and got Jay Wright And of course, the rest is history. But whoever is going to be the next head coach at Georgetown, that person has to be able to recruit DC, Maryland, and Virginia, which was a staple during the heyday of the Georgetown program under John Thompson II. He did an immensely successful job as far as getting the top kids from the DMV to come to Georgetown and play ball for him. And then even the first part of JT3's tenure at Georgetown, he had success with it as well. So that is something that Georgetown is going to have to get back to if they are once again going to be a player in the Big East Conference. And not just the Big East Conference, because in my opinion, Georgetown is a sleeping giant on the college basketball scene. And in the right hands, I really do feel that this program can get things turned around. I mean, there's a lot of legacy at Georgetown, and you think about it, especially over the last 40 years, the talent that they have sent to the NBA, especially from the center position, and it started with Patrick Ewing. You think about it, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, um, Michael Sweetney. You think about Greg Monroe, Othello Harrington, Jerome Williams, of course, Allen Iverson from the guard position, Reggie Williams, David Wingate. So there have been some guys from Georgetown that have gone on to the NBA and they've had success. And I really do feel this program is a sleeping giant if they could get back and start winning the DC area. Now, for Ewing, it's just unfortunate, especially that it did not work out for him at his alma mater. And then, of course, he coached his final game at Georgetown yesterday in a building, Madison Square Garden, that saw him have so many big moments there. First, collegiately with Georgetown in the Big East tournament, going up against St. John's. And if anybody is not young enough to remember this, but especially for the people who are old enough to remember it, those battles, and that's exactly what they were, battles between Georgetown and St. John's in the mid 80s. They helped to shape the Big East Conference. And, Ewing was a big part of that. And then, of course, Patrick Ewing spent the bulk of his NBA career playing his home games in Madison Square Garden while playing for the New York Knicks. And, of course, Patrick, you can make a legitimate stake that he is the best player in Knicks history. So it's kind of coming full circle, if you will, to see Ewing finish his last game at Georgetown at MSG. And unfortunately, another great player comes up short as a head coach. And, you think about the great players, regardless of the sport, sometimes because of the way that they see the game, it's very difficult for them to break it down to the level of players who might not be as talented as them. And of course, Patrick Ewing is not the first great player to flame out as a head coach, and he won't be the last, regardless of the sport. So for me, it's going to be interesting to see what's next for Georgetown. They have a national search going on, but it's all about getting back to respectability. It's not just Georgetown, the St. John's as well. I talked about this with the new Big East 10 years ago. I said that Georgetown and St. John's were going to be important both for the New York and DC areas, respectively. And both of them have fallen behind the wayside. I talked about it with St. John's a couple of months ago. They have to find a way to once again recruit New York City. They're not a national brand. And it's the same thing for Georgetown. They have to get back to winning the DC area. And until they do, Georgetown is going to continue to be an afterthought in the Big East. But I think Georgetown will get themselves a good hire. I do think Georgetown is going to go outside of the family and try to rebuild this thing. And I mean, at this point for the Hoyas, there's only one way for them to go, and that is up. They have taken a step back to the likes of Villanova and Seton Hall in the Big East, as well as Providence. You think about newcomers like Xavier and Marquette as well. It's one of those where Georgetown has to play catch up. And just like it was with the original Big East, the current Big East is, dominated by their coaches. And, these coaches, they're developing character, they have spirit, and they're kind of like the faces of their respective schools. And this is a great league for coaches. And I think that's another reason why Patrick Ewing got caught up in the wash. Ed Cooley has done a tremendous job at Providence. I think Kyle Neptune, it was up and down for him this year at Villanova, but he's feeling it out and he's going to get going. Shaheen Holloway at his alma mater in Seton Hall, and then the experienced guys, Shaka Smart at Marquette, Sean Miller at Xavier, Thad Matta at Butler, of course, Greg McDermott at Creighton. This is a very good conference for coaches. And if you're not on top of your game, you will get caught up in the wash, which is unfortunately what happened to both Ewing and Georgetown. Credit to Patrick Ewing. He is still going to be loyal to his school. He loves Georgetown. Georgetown loves him as well. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. So let's see what's the next step for Georgetown. And for Ewing, obviously, they gave him an opportunity to coach. I don't see Patrick coaching collegiately again. I wouldn't be surprised if in a year or so Ewing was back coaching in the NBA as an assistant for somebody. He had a long tenure with that before taking the Georgetown job. He wanted to be a head coach, got his opportunity, but unfortunately, it just did not work out for him. But nonetheless, you kind of saw the writing on the wall with where the Georgetown program was going. It's always tough to move on from a legend, somebody who helped to shape your program. But for the better interest of Georgetown going forward, they had to move on from the Hoya Destroya, hands down their best player in the basketball program's history. But nonetheless, let's see how Georgetown rebounds from here. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.